Hello, I'm Christopher Kennedy and welcome back to Trapcode in Action, and we're going to be looking at Trapcode Horizon, which is a really powerful plugin that doesn't get used often enough. I'll show you just what you can do with this. I've set up a new composition. I'm going to drop our famous logo in here and make it 3D. I'll hit S to shrink it down, scale it down a little, and then add a camera. Then I hit C, and this is the standard way that we could come in here and rotate around this. But what if I wanted to add something more interesting, such as a gradient or a background? We'll get to gradients in a minute, but let's add a horizon background using this panorama. Ideally, you should use what's known as a spherical projection, and that's just a complicated way of saying that somebody has taken a lot of photographs, stuck them together, and bent them in a way that makes them work perfectly in a 3D application. There are plenty of places where you can download spherical projections, usually for a price, but you can do that. However, if you just have a wide panorama like this, it will do most of the job for you. Back in our composition, we'll add a new solid. I'm going to make that a black solid, and to that I'm going to add horizon. Just drag that below my camera. I'll rename the layer horizon as well. And by default, it's just showing this grey gradient map, and if I drag it below the logo, and I'll change the logo's blending mode from normal to silhouette to luma. And now when we fly around, you can see in fact that there is a gradient above and below. We'll come back and look at gradients properly in a minute, because for now, if we click on our horizon layer and go to image map, you can see that under layer we have none selected, so we need to bring this lake panorama into our composition. I'll make it invisible so that it doesn't confuse the image later on. Click back on horizon, go to the effects and change layer to lake panorama. And there is our lake panorama. If I rotate around this, you'll see that it does meet up. So this has been bent around in 360 degrees to meet up so that we could go all the way around if we wanted to. And we can go all the way over the top, up to that point there, and all the way down to the bottom. So if you have a spherical projection, you'll be able to do that without any problems. But if you're using your own photographs, you'll probably want to make some adjustments. And that actually improves the image anyway. So I'll just start around here. And then under horizontal coverage here, I'm going to go from 360 and turn that right down. We don't need to go all the way around. Somewhere around 240 should be enough. And I'm not going to look all the way up or all the way down, so vertical coverage can come right down, almost to just 90 degrees. We'll take it just over 100. And just with that change, you can see now I can look all the way around this scene, and my logo is rotating as the camera moves. But I have to get all the way over here before I hit the edge of that photograph. Just going to scale my logo up so we can see it a bit better, and then rotate around, and you can see how that appears to be in the environment. Very simple effect to achieve with Horizon, and it would be very difficult to achieve it any other way. Now this works really well if you combine it with something like Echo Space. I'd need to apply Echo Space to my logo. Click repeat, turn off auto and switch off my logo, and then in my repeater I'll just turn the Z offset up and the X, possibly even the Y, to spread those up into the distance. And now those logos move in this space, but you have to be a little careful here. If I switch to the Z camera tool, you'll notice that the logos move but the background doesn't, and if I switch to the XY tool, the same thing happens. Now this is great when you're setting up your shot. By moving your camera, you can move these logos or whatever object you've got into position. At that point, you can make all the adjustments you want to get this exactly how you want it to look. But you have to remember that only the rotation is going to work with Horizon. So you can rotate below the objects like this, and you can rotate above them and around them, but you won't be able to perform camera moves that involve moving up and down without spoiling the apparent illusion of where those 3D logos are in the image. So this is very powerful. If you look there, I've just managed to put some logos into a 3D environment and I can animate a camera around them, but you just have to be aware of the limitations within Horizon. We'll create a new composition called text, and this time we'll use some text. I've put in the word horizontal. I'm going to add a new solid, drag that below my text. Into that I'll drag on a copy of Horizon. I need a new camera to see this properly, and now when I move around the text you can see it's dark high up and light below. It's like a giant sphere has been placed around this image. But the great thing about Trapcode Horizon is that we can adjust this gradient. instead of having just 2 colors, we can turn this up to 8 if we want, and then all of these colors can be individually modified. The default settings aren't all that beautiful, so let's go in and change some of these colors, turn them down a little. It updates automatically in the background, which really helps. And for each color you can turn down its opacity, so if I want that to be darker up there, and also its V angle, its vertical angle. So it's set to 10 at the moment, but I've just pushed that up so that it's higher in the sky. I could bring it further down if I wanted. So I'll move that up, then I'll find the yellow, because I want to tone down that, so I'll just turn it down, make it whiter. Now I'll find the green, which is the next one down on the screen. I think I'd rather that was something more bluish. And I'll turn down the opacity of that one, just to sharpen that horizon. Of course you can go for very bright colors, but I'm just trying to make something a little more soft and possibly even realistic here. So I'm going to get rid of everything that's too extreme, make it something more subtle. Now I hit C to rotate my camera around the text. You can see we've created a sphere all the way around this, and however we move our camera, those colors are going to stay in place around our text. But sometimes you want to add lights and you want to add a floor, so what do you do then? I like to use lux, so I add a solid, call this lux, then I'll add a new light. I'm going to make it a spotlight, and I'll make it a bright blue spotlight. Then on my Lux layer, I will actually apply Trapcode Lux, and our spotlight becomes visible when the background comes back into view. Because the background is quite bright, I'm going to turn the intensity of this light down, but I'm going to make its reach go all the way to that layer. So I'll select Active for Reach Comp Layer and change that to horizontal. So that light is now reaching all the way to the text. So if I now select my camera and move all the way around this scene, doesn't matter where we go, we can see that light is pointing at the text. And you just wouldn't be able to do that in the traditional After Effects way. I'm going to Layer, New, Solid, and I'll create a grayish solid, make it 3D, select that layer, hit W and rotate over the X-axis until it's just below our horizontal word. I'll just move my camera around so I can see that. And I'm going to move the light up, turn its point of interest down, and you can see the light there is hitting that floor now. I might even go to Lux and change the active layer to that black solid to make sure the light goes all the way down. But I want that floor to spread out into the distance. So one solution that people use is they select it, hit S, and just scale it up forever and ever. That doesn't work so well with Horizon, but there is a solution. Double click the layer, get the pen tool, and then just draw a very rough oval mask around the center like this. Go back to the main composition. You can see that now. If I hit F and feather it, we now have a floor that fades away. It's still not large enough, so I'll hit S and scale it right up. But what happens now is that feathering is happening off into the distance. If I want that to be even more subtle, I can come back and shrink this right down, shrink my mask, and then once that mask has been shrunk, I can hit F and turn the feather up even further so that it goes right out to the edge. Then when I go back to the composition, you can see that floor disappearing off into the distance. So if I hit C now and rotate around this camera, you can see we have the light, and Horizon has left that horizon in place for us, but we now have a floor that's absorbing that light and acting the way a floor normally would in After Effects. If you really want to be able to move around a lot, you might want to move that floor further away and scale it up a little bit more. I've just moved it lower than the text there. So I find Trapcode Horizon is best when it's used in combination with other filters or when it's used with an image map. It's not the sort of filter that you immediately think that you need to use, but you will find times when you're using After Effects and you need a background that moves with your camera, and this is how to get that result. And being a Trapcode plugin, it won't just work with text and imported objects, it will also interact perfectly with 3D stroke and particular.